Who the Nashville Predators pick at number 5 on Friday night will partly depend on what the Chicago Blackhawks do ahead of them. So let's eavesdrop in on the Blackhawks draft plans, shall we?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this special crossover episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio. Of course, I have a partner in crime, Emma Lingen. On today's special crossover episode, we're going to be joined by Jack Bushman. Jack is the host of Locked On Blackhawks. We know the Blackhawks are a Central Division rival, but this week they could also stand in the way of Nashville and a future game-changing pick at the 2025 NHL Draft. Of course, the Blackhawks have the 3rd overall pick. Nashville sits with the 5th overall pick. Today, we're going to talk with Jack about Chicago's draft strategy at the top of the first round and what he sees happening next season for Chicago. We are joined now by Jack Bushman, host of the Locked On Blackhawks. We are here to find out exactly, or in the ballpark, or best guess, what the heck is going to happen with the 3rd overall pick in the Chicago Blackhawks in the draft. Jack, before we get into that, though, we just want to say, while it was lovely sharing the bottom of the NHL with you in the rankings last season, maybe we'll meet again somewhere else next season in the rankings. How, like, if you had to summarize last year for the Blackhawks, like, how would you summarize the season for y'all?
Well, first off, thank you so much for the company at the bottom of the standings last year. It was very nice to have someone else in the Central Division. Now, in all seriousness, frustrating season at times, particularly in the first 40 to 50 games. Luke Richardson got fired pretty early, and the Blackhawks offense was just so stagnant early on in the season. Connor Bedard got off to a really slow start, and just with kind of the way the team was looking, not even just the low goal totals and the losses, it was no real offensive upside for the entire team, and just got us into a real rough start to the season. But I'll tell you what, once some of the young kids came onto the scene in those final couple of months, Frank Nazar had a really strong start to the season down in the AHL. He was a huge boost to the lineup when he came up to the big leagues. That helped get Connor Bedard going a little bit. And then we also got to see Artem Levshinov and Sam Rinzel on the defensive side of things. So that definitely made it an easier season to swallow for us Blackhawks fans, considering we saw some of those glimpses of the future coming into play on the NHL scene, and left us with a little bit of a better taste in our mouth than the start of the season for sure. But, you know, another year right at the bottom of the standings. It was tough, but the future is bright, and we got to see some of that. So that was the biggest positive from the Blackhawks 24-25 season.
Okay, is it me, Emma, or could you substitute some names in that whole conversation and fill in some blanks, and you'd be like, that's the Nashville Predators season in a nutshell?
Yeah, but see, the difference is I feel like Jack, his description ended on a positive. It was like, well, there's some hope for the future. And I was like, that's where you lose us.
So foreign,
yeah,
that thing you talk about.
And that's just the weirdest thing about the Predators last season. Like, you would have never guessed that they would have been as offensively challenged of a bunch that they were, considering, I mean, the pieces and the moves that they brought in. What was kind of the breakdown of the lack of offensive output from this team last year? Because on paper, it should not have gone the way that it did.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out.
$1 million question.
It really is. And, you know, I feel like there are a lot of things to blame for that. Part of it is you do just have new guys. It's not just that you bring in new pieces, but you bring in pieces that are the kind of pieces that you build an offensive system around. And you have like that, you have this sort of leadership paralysis that we've talked about before. in the locker room. You have a newer head coach and Andrew Brunette, who maybe wasn't, prepared to deal with all of the challenges. And then, of course, you had injuries thrown in there as well. Lost the entire right side of the defense. That certainly didn't help. The list goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just one bad thing after another, and we did not actually end with a lot of hope at the end of the season. So, yay for you, Jack. We're really happy for you. How far away do you think the Blackhawks are in the process of a rebuild when it comes to being a contending team, especially with the Central Division looking the way it does now for the next couple of seasons at least?
Yeah, I would say the 26-27 season is really when we should be starting to move our way up the standings and start to get in that conversation a little bit. I had some thoughts that the Blackhawks were going to make some aggressive pushes in free agency this summer to help improve that forward group, but from what I'm hearing right now, it doesn't sound like they're going to be all that interested in the biggest names out there or bringing in someone that's necessarily going to help them get over that hurdle right here, right now. And it just sounds like general manager Kyle Davidson really wants to stay patient with the young guys, wants to give them the lion's share of the opportunities next year and not rush into anything too soon. But given the cap space the Blackhawks are going to have, they're going to spend this money at some point. And I feel like Bedard, at that point, ahead of 26-27, will be 3 years into the league. Frank Nazar will have 2 NHL seasons under his belt. Same with, Levshinov and Rinzel, who I mentioned earlier on the back end. So that, to me, from afar, kind of seems like the year where the Blackhawks, I think, internally are expecting to make their leap. I would guess the 26-27 season. This upcoming year is, unfortunately, probably just going to be more of the same, more of just focusing on the development front and letting those kids learn on the fly in the NHL.
Yeah. What pieces do you feel like the Blackhawks really need? You talk about it'd be great to see them go out and make a big splash. What do you think that they need to kind of get there?
They definitely need more help inside their top six. I loved bringing back Ryan Donato on a good contract, but Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, I like the Andre Burakovsky move that they made over the weekend, but none of those guys are going to help this top six be where we want them to be. It's not a good enough top six to actually be a playoff contender. So that's really the biggest thing the Blackhawks are looking for, I think, both in the trade market. If they are going to make a move, they're probably going to want to bring in someone young. So JJ Peterka has been a name that's kind of been on their radar. I know through the draft, they're thinking heavily at forward at number 3, which I know we'll get into here in just a moment, but it's definitely another big piece in that forward group to put up there along with Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar.
Yeah. Well, let's just pivot to the draft right there. And we're going to actually start with 1 and 2 because all of a sudden this is a discussion. I don't know if you all read the things and saw the things, but now there are rumblings that maybe Michael Misa is not a lock at 2 and that perhaps Anton Frondell may be number 2 in the San Jose Sharks' heart. Again, let's preface all that by saying I love Elliot Friedman's quote that everybody lies this time of year. What do you think about the reality of Michael Misa slipping to 3, Jack?
Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Like, I might shed a tear if he falls to 3. That's how crazy it would be. In no world should Anton Frondell go ahead of Michael Misa, in my opinion. And listen, I don't claim to be the top NHL scout or anything, but that would just be ludicrous to me. I don't see any reason why Michael Misa should not be in the top 2 of this year's draft. I'd love for it to happen, but despite some of the rumblings, I'm still not expecting it to happen at this point. I think it would just be too crazy.
Yeah. All right, Emma, is it just smoke and mirrors, do you think? Are the San Jose Sharks playing with us? Because we've had about enough of them doing that.
Yeah. I don't even know. I think that I love that Elliot said that he just said it out loud. Like, yes. Everybody does lie. It's it's gamesmanship. That's what it is this time of year. And I think that, when you get a draft class like this one, which is very different from the last 2 draft classes that we've seen, when there was a very clear number 1, a very clear number 2. Now, just the fact that there is any whisper of doubt in there, it's like, ooh, let's have some fun and let's, smoke and mirrors and all of that. Because I think that, I would say the last time we were really surprised, and I wouldn't even call it a huge surprise, but the last time there was this level of like doubt or question at the top of the draft was 2022 when Uri Slafkovsky went number one, when a lot of people were saying or thinking it was going to be Shane Wright. So even then, it's not like Uri Slafkovsky just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, he was still expected to be, one of the top picks. So I think it's just kind of the news cycle right now. And it's like we're in this time where the Stanley Cup is over, the draft hasn't happened yet. So the news cycle is churning and, things just happen and we need things to talk about now. And so I don't know. I mean, there was even at one point this offseason a question that, well, maybe the Islanders won't take Schaefer at number one. Maybe they'll take Misa, or maybe they'll take James Hagens because he's from Long Island. And wouldn't that be a nice story? And it's like, okay, like all
What
of
are we
these
doing?
things. Yeah, it's like
For
all
real.
these things may be true, but let's get back to reality here a little bit.
Yeah.
This is the time of year when all NHL GMs turn into 8th grade girls and just start whispering a little bit made up stories to see how far around the middle school things can get before it gets out of control. I'm not saying I'm not here for it. I'm saying fool me once, but you're not going to fool me twice on this Michael Misa thing. I can't imagine. Coming up, we're going to skip past 1 and 2, and we're going to get to number 3. We are going to put Jack on the hot seat. We are going to talk about who the Chicago Blackhawks may want to get their hands on with that 3rd overall pick. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. If you are looking for that snack that is both delicious and nutritious, friends, you need to crack into a great source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein. That's going to give you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I am personally a no shells variety kind of girl. It's a perfect grab and go snack for those busy hockey days, whether I am working at my desk or headed to Bridgestone Arena or just hit that point in the afternoon where I know I need a quick protein boost. They are always a great go-to. But if you are in love with cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Jack, here's what's real. We can't do anything at 5 until you people at 3 and 4 do something. So I want you to just play a game with us. This game is called Fill in the Blank. It's a very easy game. Fill in the blank for us, Jack. With the 3rd overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft, the Chicago Blackhawks select
Anton Frondell. And it's not my favorite pick, to be quite honest, but I do think it's the most likely pick of the bunch. Very, jammed up at this number 3 spot, but I think the Blackhawks want a player with size and skill combination. I talked about the forwards they have, the young forwards that they have on the scene right now, Bedard, Frank Nazar. Most of them are undersized skill players. So I think they do want to add someone who's got a little bit of meat and potatoes to their game while also bringing in some skill. And to me, that's 3 guys, Anton Frondell, Porter Martone, and Caleb Desnoyers. I think those are the 3 they're really deciding between upon this point in time. I'm guessing Frondell is probably their favorite of the group, though. I think his shot, that elite trait, is probably the most elite trait of that group that they are deciding upon. So I'm probably leaning Frondell for that reason. If it were up to me, though, I would be taking James Hagens here at number 3. Maybe that's absolutely crazy, and it's probably not going to happen because the Blackhawks, like I said, have a lot of undersized skill players already. James Hagens would be another one. But to me, at number 3 in the NHL draft, you're shooting for upside. You're shooting for the best player available, and that's James Hagens to me. I truly believe if he was playing in the OHL or one of the leagues in the CHL last year instead of college hockey, he probably would have put up insane numbers and there'd be a different narrative, I truly believe, around him at this point in time. And a point per game as a freshman, 18 years old in college hockey, a league that's grown very strongly these last few seasons, I still think that's very impressive. No, it's not what Macklin Celebrini did the year prior, make no mistake about it, but if you would have told me as a Blackhawks fan 9 months ago that you're not going to win the lottery, you're not even going to get the second pick, but you could come away with James Hagens, I think a lot of us Blackhawks fans would have been absolutely thrilled. Again, I don't think it's likely just because of the makeup of their forward group already. That's why I do think it's going to come down to Frondell, Desnoyers, or Porter Martone. But for me, I'm shooting upside here at number 3. I'll worry about those size problems later. I'd take James Hagens because I'll say this. After not selecting Ivan Demidov last year, if you let him go by and James Hagens go by and they turn into special forwards in this league when that's what the Chicago Blackhawks need, along with Connor Bedard, I'm going to be a very angry man on my podcast for a while. So that's my spiel about the number 3 overall pick.
Okay, when they pick Anton Frondell, everybody tune in to watch Jack lose his head.
I'm going to be a little salty. I'm not going to lie.
We are so here for the salty. All right, Emma, okay, let's go back. Okay, Anton Frondell, he's off the board. Okay, so then Emma, walk me through, who would Utah pick? And then what are we left with? What scrappy fifths are we going to be left with?
This is what's interesting, though. Are they going to go with the Brady Martin at 4? Are they going to take your guy, Ann?
He is my guy. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think with this draft, again, it really depends. I remember, to Jack's point, I remember back, a few months ago when James Hagens was the projected number 1, or maybe 2, maybe 3, but that would be falling, a ways for him. Now, a lot of mocks have him going to Nashville at number 5. And that, again, to the same point, it's like never thought that we would see the day. Yes, he's undersized, and we here have been urging Nashville fans to not get too hung up on that because he would easily be the most skilled forward that this franchise has drafted in years, maybe ever.
Yeah, maybe ever.
So, yeah, really good with the defensemen and the goalies, not great with the forwards here in Nashville. But I think, back to the original question. So if Frondell goes to Chicago, I don't know. I would think maybe Martone to Utah. I could see that being a potential fit. Maybe that's because I secretly want Hagens to fall to Nashville at number 5.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Yeah.
Would be,
I don't know.
From an outsider perspective, I know James isn't like your typical center the Nashville Predators like to draft, but if he's there at 5, how do you not take him? How do you not take him?
That's the thing. Nashville does not need any more of the typical center like that they like to draft. They have, it's like, look, we're big fans of Colton Sissons here on the show, but you don't need an entire, your entire center depth to be all Colton Sissons. You need guys who are actually skilled. Two-way centers are very valuable and very good to have, but like in a draft class that is so deep at the center position. And when I think it was over the weekend, The Athletic did a ranking of all 32 teams ranked by their need for center depth, just like in general.
Oh, Lord.
And guess who is at number 1? The Nashville Predators, right there at the top. Yeah. And so I think that, again, you got to go with the skill. You have to go with the skill if you're Nashville. And, like, again, even Utah, they have more, again, see, this is just assuming that Utah is not going to be greedy and say, give us all of the centers. But I mean, they have more skill in their forward group than Nashville does if you're looking like 3-4 years down the line. So I think you have to keep that in mind as well. So I don't know. Either way, I don't think you end up with a bad pick at number 5. Like that's kind of the beauty of this whole thing. I think a lot of Predators fans were maybe a little burned from the past when, they're typically picking between, 16 and 30 something, and they'll sometimes David Poyle would come up with these off the wall picks, and it's like, well, you can afford to get a little creative when you're picking that late in the draft. I don't think they're going to be picking someone at number 5 that you've never heard of before. Like, I feel pretty confident in that. So, give Barry some credit on that one. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I could see it going a lot of different ways. There isn't really a result that would completely shock me here.
Yeah. And that is what is so tricky, because Jack, you talked about, it seems like maybe Frondell is somebody that they're going to pick. You like Hagens, but it's not like there aren't a couple of other guys in the mix from 3 to 6 that you could see a team picking and say, okay, I can see that pick. Like you said, who else do you think could be in the mix for Chicago, and where do you rank them?
Yeah, so for me, Porter Martone would probably be next because he plays the wing. He is a good playmaker on the wing. 6'3", already over 200 pounds. Like, that's everything the Blackhawks have been looking for. The question around Porter, though, is he's a wing. Are you going to take a wing at 3rd overall when you have a sizable center in Anton Frondell? You have another one in Caleb Denye. Like, I could make an argument for every single one of the 4 guys who I truly believe are in contention for the Blackhawks there. I would have Martone ranked behind Hagens in my order. I actually have Anton Frondell last. I don't know if that's crazy to y'all. I'm just scared about his skating, his playmaking, his true upside other than the goal scoring. Impressive stuff already playing against grown men. He's going to be a good player, but how good of a player is he going to be? And again, when you're at number 3, I think that's a different question when you're this high in the draft. So Anton Frondell, safe bet to be a good player. Is he going to be a great one, though? At number 3, I want a great player. So that's why I'm still very stuck on Hagens, despite I know the likelihood of that happening being very slim. I would have Martone ranked after Hagens, but Martone, Denye, and Frondell are all pretty similar to me, but that's how I would have them ranked out in order. What about you guys? How do you have them all sorted out? Or do you have Brady Martin right there in the mix at number 5? Do you have Jake O'Brien there as well? Like, I think a couple picks down brings a couple more guys into consideration potentially for the Predators.
Well, Brady Martin is the pick of my heart. That's just what's real. And it's based on no scouting at all. It's just the fact that he grew up on a farm. And as a rural girl who was the grand champion showman of the Shamrock Sheep Club in 1991, here for the farm boy. But let's set that aside and talk about it from a hockey perspective. I mean, Emma, I was asked this today by someone who, does a lot of scouting and does some mock drafts, and said, hey, just between Hagens and Desnoyers, if those are the 2 that are there at 5, who would you have Nashville pick? And I said Hagens. But Nashville, one of Nashville's favorite stats is inches over 6 feet. and that is the hitch and the giddy up. I worry that will be the hitch and the giddy up when it comes to Hagens if he's available at 5 for Nashville. And I say, put him on really tall skate blades or whatever you have to do to maybe get past that. But that's where I'm at. Emma, chime in on this.
Yeah, inches over 6 feet. If you're a forward, if you're a goaltender, though, it's inches under 6 feet, and then everyone will talk about it every time you play until the end of time.
Right.
Yes, but no, and that's the kind of thing. And I catch myself sometimes saying like, what if Hagens is available and they end up picking Frondell, or they end up picking Desnoyers, or we've heard Roger McQueen a lot too. I mean, again, injury concerns there, but I think that I have to remind myself that it's like, okay, you don't like, this is the highest that Nashville has picked in the draft since they picked Seth Jones at number 4 12 years ago. So no matter what, you're getting a good player. You're getting a very good player. To Jack's point, you want a great player, which is why I'm with you. And I would go with Hagens. If all of the above are available, I go with Hagens for the pure skill factor, because Nashville, I would say, maybe never has drafted a player, a forward with this much skill.
Agreed.
Now, again, is he perfect? No. Are there some concerns, some areas where he can improve beyond his height because he can't do anything about that? Yes. I mean, there's, of course, he's there. These are all children. They're literal children. So it's like they're not going to be perfect. But I think that, you know, again, I go with Hagens, but there is a part of me that worries that I'm like, oh, this is the Predators. They're gonna get the guy who's, the Predator way. They're gonna get the farm boy, the big strong guy who goes out and just knocks people around, and it doesn't score goals, but by gosh, he has heart. Like I just hope that they don't pick. Those are the kinds of guys they usually pick, and I just hope that they can part with that when they're at number 5. But again, no matter who they get, I think they'll,
it's going to be okay.
They'll end up with a good player. It'll be okay. It'll be fine.
It's going to be okay. These are the things we tell ourselves this week. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Right.
Last thing I want to say on this, every mock draft I've gone through on my show, Hagens has been available there at number 5 for Nashville, and there's no way you guys can let him slide at number 5, in my opinion. I know he's not the typical mold, but you need more skill down the middle, and he's the guy to do that. So even on my show as, a Central Division opponent, I've been like, the Nashville Predators would be insane to let him slide past 5. Absolutely insane. And if you guys want a real wonky mock draft to go and look at, by the way, check out what Chris Peters dropped today. James Hagens went 9th overall to the Buffalo Sabres.
I saw that. And I was like, scroll up, and surely you skipped something. No, friends. James Hagens, 9th to the Sabres. 9th to the Sabres.
Crazy. Anton Frondell was 2 in that mock draft as well. I was like, this is interesting.
Who did the Predators pick? I will admit I haven't seen this.
I've got it up right now. Let's see. Who did the Predator?
Is it going to be what I
but the Blackhawks took Michael Misa. The Blackhawks took Michael Misa.
Like, you don't care who's 5th. You got Misa.
It was McQueen. I'm pretty sure you guys did take McQueen at 5. I'm pretty sure. Which would
McQueen at 5.
I'd be stunned at that as well. Stunned.
Yeah.
But it's this time of year, so everyone lies.
Everyone lies. They're all whispering.
I'm with you, though. If Hagens is available at number 5, if he's still there, if Utah hasn't picked him, if no one else has picked him, if they let him go, I don't even know. I might be joining Jack and just like screaming into the void for like a week after that. Because how are we supposed to go on? Yeah.
We can co-host Locked On Yells.
Yeah, Locked On Screams.
Yep.
It's going to be really nice for Predators fans, because instead of screaming at the TV, shoot the puck, we'll be screaming, pick James Hagens. And there's a little variety in that from last season. Speaking of last season, both of these teams really want to improve over their finishing last season. Coming up, we're going to talk about next season for the Blackhawks and for the Predators, and we're going to talk about that Central Division. All right, Jack, you said earlier in the show, you kind of see 26-27 sort of being the year for the Blackhawks really to kind of hit their stride. What do you see for next season for the Blackhawks? What are the pieces that you think are still going to maybe be missing, or that you're going to need to maybe address in free agency or via trade between now and 2 seasons from now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they just don't have enough game-breaking skill on the scene yet. They're starting to get some pieces, guys who we know are going to be part of the puzzle here in this rebuild, but still not enough to get them over the edge. And that is still done a little bit purposely because we want to make sure we know exactly what we have in these young players. That's still part of the rebuild. And before you go out and free agency and start giving up assets through the trade market to bring in guys, you kind of do want to figure out particularly what you have. And Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Lev Shinov, Rinzel, Korchinski, like we have so many players under the age of 23. It's just all about getting them experience next year. And I know that's not the most fun answer. I know it's pretty darn similar to what we've been going through the last 2 years. But when you have a general manager as patient as Kyle Davidson is, that's really the forte. And in addition to kind of what we're hearing about free agency and not expecting the Blackhawks to be making any big runs, it's just all going to be about patience again for the Blackhawks next year. And unfortunately, probably going to be looking at a high pick in the 2026 NHL draft. But I know the Nashville Predators are not trying to be in that conversation once again. And I'm really interested to hear your guys' input on what the priorities are for this offseason, because from an outsider, it's pretty hard to gauge because you have a lot of good pieces on this roster, and there was so much confidence about this team going into last year. Obviously, it did not go the way you wanted it to, but what do you do with this roster now? Are you still trying to bring in pieces to, hey, maybe we can still figure this thing out with this group? Or are you trying to send some of them away to bring in younger players? What is kind of the main priority of the Predators this offseason?
Yeah, that's a great question because here is where we're at. After the end of last season, I don't think we know much about what the Predators currently have. I don't know that you can, Steven Stamkos did not have a fantastic season. Jonathan Marchessault didn't have kind of the season you expected. There's, of course, rumors that maybe he wants to move somewhere else, so we don't know for sure where that's going to land. None of the Predators staples really had outstanding seasons, but I don't know that you can walk away from last season and go, well, Steven Stamkos is a wash and Jonathan Marchessault is gone and he's a wash and Roman Josi is old. And, so we still don't know what we don't know. And that's scary. Especially when it comes to Barry Trotz and off-season moves. He has said his priority is to get a defenseman to play with Roman Josi. And so I think that's where he's going to invest time, assets in the off-season. I don't know that it is a robust market, friends. And that's a little unnerving because the Predators have a ton of draft picks. They have 3 picks in the first round. And look, I have a shopping list of the first round that doesn't just include Brady Martin, the farm boy. Like there are some other pieces they need to get, but he could opt to do something with that. I think there's a lot. There's a lot they need to do, but they don't know necessarily enough for sure to do a lot of big things. That's kind of how I would summarize it, Emma.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, which fire do we put out first? Because there were so many that we were not expecting, to be clear. Because, last offseason, the biggest or the most obvious need was we need goal scoring, right? So to Barry Trotz's credit, he addressed that very clearly. He went and he got Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. And then, he had lost Ryan McDonough, but the Brady Shea signing was to help with that. And so it looked like, again, to his credit, on paper, he addressed the thing that needed to be addressed. Now, that did not pan out this year. But again, no one is looking at the Predators roster right now and saying, well, where are the goals going to come from? Who's going to score the goals? Like that's still, you have to have some level of belief that the goal scorers are going to get back to scoring goals. But I think that when you look at the roster on paper and address, or look at what needs to be addressed the most, it's, to Ann's point, the defense. I mean, specifically the right side of the defense. It is a wasteland. And I mean, absolutely no disrespect to our dear friend, Nick Blankenberg, God love him, but he was playing on the Predators top D pair.
Top pair.
Top D pair.
Top pair.
Yes. And he was playing alongside elder statesman Brady Shea, the most tenured member of the Predators blue line was the guy who just got here in July by the end of the season. So part of that is injuries. Roman Josi, Jeremy Lauzon, both injured, but then, you lose Luke Shen, you lose Dante Fabro, you lose Alex Carrier, and then Barry Trotz has the audacity to come out and say, what we need is a skilled, right shot defenseman to play with Roman Josi. And I'm like, oh, like any of the 3 that you just got rid of? Okay. Like, all right. So, and to Ann's point, the market is pretty thin when it comes to free agency. And even trades, like just knowing how valuable of a commodity right shot defensemen are right now. I mean, like whether it's a trade or a free agent signing, you're gonna have to overpay. And so I think that Barry Trotz has got to be ready to do that.
It's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Predators. They probably, on paper, it looks like they should be okay. They probably need to do a lot. They really shouldn't do a lot. It's one of those, it's just one of those.
I know. I was like conflicted looking at it again from an outsider perspective, because after everything, all the moves you made last year, I feel like you can't really punt on it now, and you probably don't expect as many fires to happen as you did last year. And if that doesn't happen, this team is bound for some regression. Just how high is that, or progression, sorry, due to bounce and turn around in the right directions? Just how much is that going to be? So yeah, it's fascinating to look at this Predators team from the outside and be like, I don't think they're terribly far away, but they might be, but I can't really tell at all. I can't really tell at all, but I don't think they can quit with this group yet, is the thing.
Right. Absolutely. You have nailed
even
it.
if they wanted to,
True.
there's so much movement protection on that roster right now that like you really can't. And you've still got, this is the other fun wrinkle in this season that Predators fans just love to hear about, is that the Matt Duchene buyout reaches its peak this year. Ooh. So they're going to be paying him $6.5 million, I believe, while he earns that nice new contract in Dallas. So that's another little, twist of the knife there for Nashville. But I think that, it's, to your point, they shouldn't be that far away. They shouldn't be as far away as they appeared to be by the end of this past season. So there has to be a little bit of hope. Ann and I are not the right people to be preaching hope, though, because it's been 84 years since we had hope.
It was the longest. It was like dog years that season. It was dog years, Jack. Like we just aged. We aged like a president over those 82 regular season games. It was brutal. Talking about progression and regression, Jack, who in this just horrible Central Division, who is going to get better next season, do you anticipate? And is there a team that you think is going to take a step back? Because, friends, this Central Division is an absolute gauntlet for teams. Gauntlet.
I've said the Winnipeg Jets were going to take a step back for like 6 years, and they just never do. I don't know how. They'll probably go and make a playoff run again next year, probably lose in the first round.
They got Jonathan Taves now, so they might as well.
True. I'll be rooting a little bit from afar. I think the Colorado Avalanche, interestingly enough, could take a little bit of a step back, and just losing Mikko Rantanen in the manner in which they lost him too. Like, I wonder the vibes around that locker room. Now, Colorado's so talented, they're probably still going to make a Stanley Cup playoff spot, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to be right there at the top or as big of a powerhouse as they've been these last few years come next season. But still got to see what happens in free agency in the next couple of weeks, I think, to give like a stronger opinion on that. But Colorado, I wouldn't be too surprised to take a mini step back this year. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Emma. This gives me anxiety. Emma and I hate predictions. We have too much anxiety for this, but we do it for the love of the craft.
It's hard.
So go ahead, Emma.
Thanks, Ann. I'm with you on the Jets that I've been saying for years. It's like, all right, this will be the year that
the gig is up. The gig is up.
I've also said that about St. Louis for the last few years. And then, especially this past year. Now, granted, they pulled a little bit of a Nashville and went on a crazy run in the second half to get to the playoffs. But to their credit, even once they got there, they made it interesting in that first round. They looked good. So, again, it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about is the moral of the story here. But I don't know. It's hard. If we're talking about who's going to take a step forward, I'm very high on Utah. I think that Utah is going to make some noise next year. Now, being in the Central Division, are they going to challenge for a division title? Probably not. But that's just out of their control, really, at this point. With Nashville, it's like, well, you can't really regress much more than this.
Don't say it out loud, Emma. Don't put it out in the hockeyverse.
We've already said it. It's like, well, you can only go up from here. And it's like, but can we though? So yeah, I really don't know. I would say, who's going to take a step back? I'd go Winnipeg or St. Louis, maybe.
Yeah. This Central Division, I'm telling you, is the most fascinating division. And I don't say that as somebody biased. I say that as somebody who is watching these teams compete. I think it is going to be a fascinating division. And I think, even a year, 2 years, 3 seasons from now, it's still going to be awfully interesting in the Central Division. A lot of teams making moves, and like, you mentioned the Blackhawks on the rise to Nashville. We don't know what we're doing, but let's see what happens in a couple seasons. It's going to be great.
Can't happen with my Blackhawks soon enough. I don't mean to put the jinx on you, but Nashville really should. I mean, again, you can't go down any further. If you guys are worse than the Blackhawks next year, you're in a real bad spot. So Nashville should bounce back in a decent way this season, at the very least. They got too much talent on that roster. They got to figure out that right side for sure to make like a true push up the standings, but there's enough talent on that roster to go and compete for a playoff spot for sure.
Yeah, from your lips to the hockey god's ears, friend. I mean, we've burned all the sage we can burn. We've chanted all we can chant, and let's see what happens. We're going to wrap up this crossover episode, but before we do that, Jack, we need all of our listeners to know where they can find you and where they can find the Locked On Blackhawks podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Every episode is also on YouTube. You want to check me out on any social media platform, you can find me at Jack Bushman too. Would love for you both to plug my side of the audience. Let us know where we can tune into any Predators updates, especially leading into this draft where no one really knows what's going to be going down. Even apparently 1 and 2 now. We got Michael Misa falling to number 3. I don't expect it, but it's going to be a crazy next couple of weeks.
It is. Well, you can find our podcast at LO_Predators on social media, of course, on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. Emma, where can we find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen. You can also find more of my NHL coverage over at the Hockey News.
All right, Jack, thanks for joining us. We will regroup after the draft and see how this all shakes out and maybe preview the season when it rolls around.
Sounds like a plan to me. Thank you so much for having me on. Always fun. And if neither of us take James Hagens, we riot.
Oh, Locked On Screams kicks off next week.
Should be interesting. Everyone stay tuned.